Ha! I really try to change my shirt as if I'm not wearing the most recognizable makeup on earth. Anyways, we're back with part 2 of chapter 12 of Women Who Run with Wolves. We're getting into the reason why rage is actually good sometimes. Conducive, good for us. Good for us. So, Estes begins talking about this particular subject with another story. So, this is the story of the withered trees. It's a pretty short one. I'm gonna read it for you guys. There was a soul whose very bad temper had cost him more wasted time and loss of good friends than any other element in his life. He approached an old wise man in rags and asked, "How can I ever bring this demon of rage under control?" The old man instructed the younger man to post himself at a parched oasis far off in the desert, and to sit there among the withered trees, and to draw up the brackish water for any traveler who might venture there. And the man, trying to overcome his rage, rode out to the desert, to the place of the withered trees. For months, garbed in robes and burnous, against the flying sand, he drew the sour water and gave it to all who approached. Years passed, and he suffered no more fits of temper. One day, a dark rider came to the dead oasis and gave a haughty look down at the man who offered him water from a bowl. The rider scoffed at the clouded water and refused it and began to ride on. The man offering water was immediately enraged, so much so he was blinded by it, and seized the rider down off of his camel, killed him on the spot. Oh la! He was immediately aggrieved that he had become so consumed by his rage. And look what it had come to! Suddenly, up rode another rider at great speed. The rider looked down upon the visage of the dead man and exclaimed, "Thank Allah! You have killed the man who was on the way to murder the king." And at that moment, the cloudy water of the oasis turned sweet and clear, and the withered trees of the oasis blushed green and burst into joyous bloom. Obviously, this tale is not about killing people, but about training your rage to use when it is appropriate to do so. Because women have intuition naturally, we're naturally more open because that's how intuition works. We're trained to be open so that we can pick up on clues of gestures, of facial expressions, of inflections of voice, to understand how people are feeling, to understand how people think, to understand how events work, and therefore be able to feel and almost predict events and things happening, and also be able to somewhat feel other people's feelings. By the time we're adults, our intuition is growing. We are in the process of growing that intuition, and as free, wild women, we are somewhat vulnerable because of our intuition. This intuition leaves our spirit vulnerable to injury. Because our intuition is so open, if a woman's spirit is injured, especially if she is tended towards rage, it may exemplify itself as one of these traits. Esty says in the book, she may carry a form of scattershot rage that compels her to pick, or use coldness like anesthesia, or give out sweet words while meaning to punish or demean. She may force her own will on those who are dependent on her, or she may threaten them with severance of relationship or affection. She may withhold praise or even the giving of credit where credit is due, and in general act quite instinct injured. It is a given that a person who treats others in this manner is under intensive attack in her own psyche by a demon who does exactly the same to her. So a lot of people exemplify rage in the way that they treat other people. Maybe it's a quiet rage, maybe it's not violent, maybe it's not loud, maybe it's not destructive, but it is violent, loud, and destructive in these types of ways, in that it is injuring others, people's spirits, in the same way that her own spirit was injured. Some women may identify this and then be compelled to fix the issue by ignoring it, by pushing it away, by trying not to be petty, by minding their own business, by trying to be nicer, There's nothing per se wrong with those things, but they're very temporary changes. We're not supposed to be learning to be unconfrontational. We're supposed to learn to confront the true issue. We're not striving to be saintly nuns. We're striving to understand our rage and be able to pinpoint the issue and act out our rage productively. Esty says in the book, "There has been much speculation that an angry woman is awesome in her power to cause fear and trembling in those around her, but that it is far too much projection of the viewer's personal angst for any woman to justly carry. In her instinctual psyche, a woman has the power, when provoked, to be angry in a mindful way, and that is power. Anger is one of her innate ways to begin to reach out to create and preserve the balances that she holds dear, all that she truly loves. It is both her right and at times, and in certain circumstances, a moral duty." So we understand that rage serves a purpose, that it comes and it must be acknowledged and released. In some ways, this fact is actually kind of a gift, because a woman who has been able to hold captive to her inner wild soul while navigating these heavily raging waters is a woman of true depth. But she can only become that if she can see past bitterness and come to cleansing, to cleanse the bitterness of the soul. Esty says, "Are symbols that mark a death. Right there, right on that spot, someone's journey in life halted unexpectedly. There's been a car accident, or someone was walking along the road and died of heat exhaustion, or a fight took place there. Something happened there that altered that person's life and the lives of other persons forever. Women have died 1,000 deaths before they are 20 years old. They've gone in this direction or that, have been cut off. They have hopes and dreams that have been cut off also. Anyone who says otherwise is still asleep. All that is grist for the mill of Descansos. While all these things deepen individuation, differentiation, growing up and growing out, blossoming, becoming awake and aware and a conscience, they are also profound tragedies and have to be grieved as such. To make Descansos means taking a look at your life and marking where the small deaths and the big deaths have taken place. I like to make a timeline of a woman's life on a big long sheet of white butcher paper and to mark across the places along the graph, starting with her infancy all the way to the present, where parts and pieces of herself and her life have died. We mark where there were roads not taken, paths that were cut off, ambushes, betrayals, and deaths. I put a little cross along the timeline at the places that should have been mourned or still need to be mourned. And then I write on the background, forgotten, for those things that the woman senses but which have not yet surfaced. I also write forgiven over those things that the woman has, for the most part, released. I encourage you to make Descansos, to sit down with a timeline of your life and say, where are the crosses? Where are the places that must be remembered, must be blessed? In all their meanings that you've brought forward into your life today. They must be remembered, they must be forgotten at the same time. It takes time and patience. So to make Descansos means to make time, to take inventory of your life. Make marks for the little deaths and the big ones. Esty says, making Descansos is almost like making little love ballads or little lullabies, all for your past sufferings. Mourning them, rocking them, and laying them to rest. When rage becomes a toxic dam to your creative life, Descansos, or the practice of forgiveness, is the medicine to soothe it. Esty says in the book, when a woman has trouble letting go of anger or rage, it's often because she's using rage to empower herself. While that may have been wisdom at the beginning, now she must be careful, for ongoing rage is like a fire that burns her own primary energy. To be in this state is like speeding through life, pedal to the metal. trying to live a balanced life with the accelerator pressed all the way to the floor. Neither is the furyness of rage to be mistaken for a substitute for a passionate life. It is not life at its best. It is a defense that, once the time of needing it for protection has passed, costs plenty to keep. After a time, it burns interminably hot, pollutes our ideas with its black smoke, and occludes other ways of seeing and apprehending. The forgiveness of rage takes time because, as we spoke about before, rage is cyclical, waxing, and waning. The angst and torment of times past rise up in the psyche on a cyclical basis. Although a deep purging discharges most of the archaic hurt and rage, the residue can never completely be swept clear. It should leave a very light ash, not a hungry fire. So the clearing of residual rage must become a periodic hygienic ritual, one that releases us, for to carry old rage beyond the point of its usefulness is to carry a constant, if unconscious, anxiety. Sometimes people become confused and think that to be stuck in an outdated rage means to fuss and fume and to act out and toss and throw things. It does not mean that in most cases. It means to be tired all the time, to carry a thick layer of cynicism, to dash the hopeful, the tender, the promising. It means to be afraid you will lose before you open your mouth. It means to reach flashpoint inside, whether you show it on the outside or not. It means bilious, entrenched silences. It means feeling helpless. But there is a way out, and it is through forgiveness. Oh, forgiveness, you say. Anything but that? But you know in your heart that someday, sometime, it will come to that. It may not come until the deathbed time, but it will come. Consider this. Many people have trouble with forgiveness because they have been taught that it is a singular act to be completed in one sitting. That is not so. Forgiveness has many layers, many seasons. In our culture, there is a notion that forgiveness is a 100% proposition, all or nothing. It is also taught that forgiveness means to overlook, to act as though a thing has not occurred. This is not true either. A woman who can work up a good 95% forgiveness of someone or something tragic and damaging almost qualifies for beatification, if not sainthood. If she is 75% forgiving and 25%, I don't know if I can ever fully forgive, but I don't know if I even want to, that is more the norm. But 60% forgiveness accompanied by 40%, I don't know and I'm not sure and I'm still working on it, is definitely fine. A level 50% or less forgiveness qualifies for work in progress status. Less than 10%? You've either just begun or you're really not trying yet. You are not bad if you don't forgive easily. You are not a saint if you do. Each to her own and all in due time. That's a direct quote from the book. I wrote it down separately though because it hit me very well, there are some things that I forgive extremely easily on and let go really easily. I always want to be an extremely forgiving person, so usually when situations happen to me, even if you guys know about my divorce before and if you watch any of my videos talking about it or any of my past relationships, a lot of times when people hurt me, my first thought is I understand, I'm good. This book, this chapter taught me that that's really not the best way of going about it because I never deal with the inner turmoil that has to do with the rage that is brought up based on how people treat me, and so I end up a lot of times treating other people in my life with residual rage from past situations. Rage is a difficult thing. Sometimes you feel it's stronger for other things than others. Like we talked about, that inner child trying to protect us. But it's okay if it's hard to forgive some things and not the easiest thing in the world to get over. It's okay if it takes time. You are not bad if it takes you time to forgive someone. Also, though, which is a big point that I needed to learn, because a lot of times I was forgiving people so easily just because I wanted to be a good person, wanted to feel like I was healed and healthy and all of that. Also realizing that you are not a saint if you do is very, very important. You take all of the outer motivation off of forgiveness and it becomes just solely for you. A basic assessment of forgiveness, Estes says here. To truly heal, however, we must say our truth, and not only regret and pain, but also what harm was caused, what anger, what disgust, and also what desire for self-punishment or vengeance was evoked in us. The old healer of the psyche understands human nature with all its foibles and gives pardon based on the telling of the naked truth. She not only gives second chances, she most often gives many chances. Then Estes goes on to explain the 4 stages of forgiveness. Number 1, forgo, to leave it alone. Number 2, forbear, to abstain from punishment. Number 3, forget, to aver from memory, to refuse to dwell. Number 4, forgive, to abandon the debt. This is my understanding of them. Number 1, forgo, leaving the situation. Don't completely abandon the situation, especially if it's an ongoing thing or a current issue. But to forgo means to take a vacation from the issue a little while. Not literally, unless you can and you can afford it, in which case, go you girl. But give yourself a little break from the situation. If it's a current ongoing situation, if it's a past situation that you are bringing up and like allowing yourself to feel the rage of, or being triggered by something current, whatever the situation is, give yourself a little break from it. Step away from it. Once you have brought it to surface, step away. Give yourself a break to be happy. Allow your psyche to know that you still care for it, that it doesn't just have to go through this hell fire all the way through, that it still has happy moments, that happy moments do still exist. Remind yourself of those factors before you dive deep into forgiveness and allowing the debt to disappear. Going to hang out with and spend time with people that you love is a great thing to forgo, but a key thing here is don't use that time to vent about issues, to talk about the issues. Not to say that that's wrong at all. Absolutely talk to your loved ones about the things going on in your life, but to forgo something, it's better to not be talking about it, to let yourself create new happy memories that don't surround the trauma. This one quote, "The issues of the wounded psyche will bedevil a woman far less if she assures the psyche healing balms now and dealing with issues of who caused what injury later." Forbear, to abstain from punishment. This does not mean go deaf or blind or lose any self-protective vigilance at all. This is simply to contain the issue and to keep the issue at one and at hand. We want to give strength of integrity to your next actions. We've all been there when somebody did something messed up and our response was petty, and the conversation turned around from the messed up thing that the person did to being us apologizing for our petty response to it. That is not what we want here. That is not conducive to helping the situation. Our petty response isn't conducive to helping the situation, but also we don't want to give any opening for this whole conversation to be switched around. We don't want to create 2 issues so that we have to split concern between 2 different traumas. We want to keep it focused on the one trauma at hand. So abstain from punishment, focusing on the issue at hand. This does not mean, however, to hide or become timid in dealing with the issue. Simply refrain from punitive uttering, unnecessary conversation, from hostility. Just simply, temper it back a little bit. Practice generosity of spirit and allow the compassionate nature to participate. This is a good practice for others and dealing with situations with others, but also in dealing with our past and rage that is affecting us from our past and forgiving those rages. It's also a good practice to practice with ourselves, of abstaining from punishing ourselves for the mistakes that we may have made in the past or the things that were out of our control. To abstain from punishment keeps us focused on the issue at hand, even when it comes to issues within ourselves. Even if we were the absolute worst person on the planet, to punish ourselves takes away from us being able to deal with the issue. Third step, forget. To aver from memory or refuse to dwell. Once you have come to this point of forgiveness, you've gone through the stages of forgo and forbear. You have opened up the wound, heard its pain, you have mourned it, you have taken a break from it, you have come back, you have abstained from punishing it in the conversation of healing it, and now at this point, if you are truly ready to forgive, the next step is to refuse to dwell, to let go of the issue, to let it become the past, to stop replaying the problem, to let bygones be bygones, and realize if I am truly saying I'm done, then I'm going to be done. Consciously letting go does not mean to contract amnesia all of a sudden, but just take away the importance to the issue, to stop making it be the foreground of your everyday experience so that you can move on with your life. And finally, the fourth step is to forgive, to abandon the dead, to have gone through the steps of forgo, to taking a vacation of it, to forbear, to stopping punishing, to forget, to let go of it, to refuse to dwell on it. Finally, you must come to the point of forgiveness, which is when you feel that finally all debt has been paid. That is the final step of forgiveness, when you let go of the desire for any more debt to be paid for the trauma made to you. You can do this in many ways. You can make a blanket forgiveness for all wrongs that have ever been done. You can make it just for one singular wrong. You can make it for all wrongs that have been done to you from the past to the present. You can make it for all wrongs that have been done to you from the past, but if you make any more from this point, it's a whole nother story. You can make it however you want it to be. The act of forgiveness is an act of creation. It comes within you, and it comes from the power that you created from your practice of forgoing, forbearing, and forgetting. It comes from the accumulation of all of those practices, and it is a creation and a power that you are giving to the other person or to the situation to also forgo, forget, and forbear. To also forgo, forbear, forget, and forgive the situation. So finally, how does one know if one has forgiven? And Esty says in the book, one last message. How does one know if she has forgiven? You tend to feel sorrow over the circumstance instead of rage. You tend to feel sorry for the person rather than angry with him. You tend to have nothing left to remember to say about it all. You understand the suffering that drove the offense to begin with. You prefer to remain outside the milieu. You are not waiting for anything. You are not wanting anything. There's no Lorette snare around your ankle stretching you from way back there to here. You are free to go. It may not have turned out to be a happily ever after, but most certainly there is now a fresh once upon a time waiting for you from this day forward. And that is the end of chapter 12. So, hope you guys enjoyed that chapter. Let me know what you guys thought about it. If it was difficult for any of you guys going through, just let me know the business. I hope you guys dug it. I will be back with chapter 13 very, very soon. I think that's all I have to say. I really need to make some Descansos in my life. Ooh, sorry if I've been pronouncing that wrong the entire friggin' video again. I don't know. I'm sorry. Love you guys. Subscribe. Peace.